Hello, my fellow movie fans, and welcome to another episode of A Feast of Films Theatre with your hosts, Matthew Ayalew and Ethan R. Hill. How's that? That was good?
Ah, yeah. Classic. Classic.
Ready for this? Very serious.
Very serious.
Much like last time.
Every time.
Incredibly serious. All the time.
All the time.
All the time. The most serious.
The most serious podcast ever.
Exactly. I mean, like, people don't come to us to listen to, like, us talk about nothing.
That's very true.
They listen to us to talk about important things like movies.
It's very true. That's hence a feast of film.
Hey, you!
Bless you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to an episode of Feast of Films. My name is Ethan R. Hill, and with me, as not always, but this time and last time...
Jesse Prosser. Hello, everybody.
Why are you still here?
Because you got no one else.
Why'd you have to say it like that? I may not have anyone else, but at least I have... I got...
Do 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 do.
At least I have all the John Carpenter films.
That's true, Ethan. And that is what we're here to talk about today.
And at least I have really, really convenient, smooth segues.
You certainly do.
You are the reason why I drink pop and things mixed in it.
Yeah, it's actually a giant Texas Mickey of whiskey he's got in his lap right now.
We're not in Texas.
It's called the Texas Mickey.
Why would it be called a Texas?
Because everything's bigger in
Mickey.
Texas.
Oh, goodness.
That is exactly why. Everything's
Oh.
bigger in Texas, so they call it a Texas Mickey.
I feel like, what if everything is just smaller everywhere else, though?
Or if Texas is just overcompensating by saying everything is bigger in Texas.
Exactly. So much like you in your life, you're basically Texas.
I am the Texas of people. It's very true. But not in like a rednecky oil tycoon kind of way. More of the art house Austin kind of way.
Hey, Prosser, what are you?
Stupid.
No, you're Texas.
What's the difference?
Zing.
I
I got you to burn yourself there.
It's true.
I don't know why it was so easy.
Because we're quoting SpongeBob and I appreciate it.
It's true.
Yeah. Anywho.
So yeah, let's you wanted to talk about John Carpenter this time.
I would love to talk about John Carpenter this time.
Well, who is he? What does he do? Where is he gone? What's up? What's John? What is John Carpenter?
Is that the Jeopardy question? Like, what is John Carpenter?
No, it'll be who is John Carpenter?
Who is John Carpenter?
But I'm asking, what is the essence? What is John Carpenter to you?
John Carpenter.
And go.
Well, John Carpenter is one of my, he's probably my favorite filmmaker of all time if I really had to think about it.
Why?
Just really putting me on the spot there.
Just asking the hard questions.
Apparently. To me, it's just probably is one of the most, at least from the period of 1977 to 1988, has one of the most consistent filmographies of any filmmaker I've seen. I'd say his run in the 80s is probably up there with, probably with Spielberg's run in the 80s, if I was being honest.
But other than just his run, what about his films? Why when you think about him being your favorite filmmaker, what is it about his movies that you love? What is it about specifically his films as opposed to just he had a good run of films? What about his films?
Well, John Carpenter's movies, they're not necessarily... The cool thing about a lot of his movies is, he's helped, he's either, been the sole writer of a lot of them, or he's had a writing partner. Most of the stories that he has done have been his own stories, to one degree or another.
Or remakes.
Yep. He's done a handful of remakes, which we will discuss. But one of the big things is his movies always have a bit more... They always bite off slightly more than the budget can chew, but he makes it work. There's these high concept ones like Escape from New York and Big Trouble in Little China, and while they're not necessarily massive budget movies, he makes them feel big, with what he's got. And especially some of the earlier ones, there's definitely there's places you can see the budget even now, but a lot of them to me still hold up even by today's standard. So in that regard, he is inspirational, especially for those who are starting out, being like, you don't necessarily have to have a massive budget to pull off these like really big scope ideas. And just the general attitude of his films feel very he feel like a lot of his films feel like very anti-establishment in a lot of ways, like especially if you look at stuff like They Live or Escape from New York, like they all have this very like would it be fair to say punk rock attitude?
Like, I think so. Like, I don't. It's weird. It's weird because like I don't know if I would go as far as saying punk rock.
Because like I mean Snake Plissken to a degree is like kind of like a fringe of society punk rock type character.
No, honestly, dude. Like, and it's funny because he's a very like John Carpenter's a very liberal person. He's very
100% he is.
Most of his protagonists are very libertarian.
Yes,
Because even
I
look
would
at,
agree with
like
that.
look at I'd say Snake is very much a I just want to do what I want to do in the
Oh,
law. can leave me
100%.
alone.
Like
Um,
Snake Plissken does not give a shit. He wants to do what he wants to do.
Rowdy Piper in They Live, same thing. Like it's
He's just
very,
a man trying to make a living in the world.
Yeah, and he's like, well, I don't care for this bigger conspiracy stuff, and then he gets sucked into it. Like,
Yep. He becomes a
it's-
hero by circumstance.
Well, even McCready,
Yep.
like he's like I'd say he's also
He's
that.
he's the alcoholic helicopter pilot who ends up having to take charge of the situation he wants nothing to do with.
His characters are either people who are specifically should be the competent ones dealing with stuff, like Prince of Darkness is the, it's I mean like they're not they're competent, but they're underprepared for what it is.
Yes.
Or they're like, or Snake Plissken would be the one who would be competent in dealing with that situation.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you look at the flip side of it, otherwise it's just a bunch of blue collar guys who have no clue what the heck they're doing,
Oh yeah.
and they just get caught up in it.
100%.
So like it's interesting because again, like I wouldn't say that there's really any like I don't know. That's the thing is like I don't know enough
Like,
about
it's
his
not
like
quite-
ideology as a person, but like I'd say that a lot of his ideology doesn't necessarily like it doesn't not line up with those characters.
Yeah.
Like it's weird. It's
Well, he's not really like he's not big on like anything to do with like the right wing side of politics. That is increasingly clear with a lot of his movies. Especially when you look at like again when you're talking about Escape from New York, They Live is essentially like it's a movie that just damns consumerism like straight up. Most of his movies do have the theme of like regular people having to go against like the faceless horde to one degree or another, or like forces that are like beyond your understanding or ability to necessarily fight, but you're gonna fight them anyway.
because that'd be the Fog.
The Fog, The Thing, Prince of Darkness.
I guess even Assault on Precinct 13 to a degree.
Mm-hmm. They're coming after you. Are you going to just go quietly into the night, or are you gonna stand there and fight?
Both.
Yeah, oftentimes both.
Oftentimes both. Like so, those themes are things you connect with personally. Would you say?
I'd say so. Yeah, like it's definitely like it's themes that like go throughout his entire filmography, like from like near the very beginning to some of his later works, which vary in quality like when you start getting like into the 90s, but overall like a lot of the stuff that he wants, like the stories that he wants to tell, often fall into those categories.
No, and I can agree with that.
Yeah. So I think like what got you like what was your first exposure to John Carpenter as a filmmaker?
Well, so it's weird because I think I got exposed to like Halloween before I even knew that was a John Carpenter thing. Like I'm trying to think of all the movies of his that I saw, and Halloween's really the only one that I saw that like I didn't like before I knew who he was.
Yeah. Well, I think that's most like I think most people's first like John Carpenter movie, whether they know it or not, is usually Halloween because
Well, and, like,
it's on TV all the time around the holiday season.
well, like I saw Rob Zombie's Halloween first.
Really?
Yeah, like I didn't really know too much about John Carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and for me, it was I have this DVD about special effects makeup called
Yeah.
how is it Feast of Flesh? Is that what it is?
Could be.
That would be weird. Anyway,
How ironic.
but it was basically I think it's like half hour to an hour long documentary just on makeup effects.
Mm.
And they talked a lot about John Carpenter films, specifically The Thing.
Yeah. Well, that's
So-
the big one.
Well, then when you find out, like, as someone who wants to get into special effects and stuff, and you love special effects, you start kind of going through those movies, and you start going, oh, I want to see all these. I want to see what these
Mhm.
effects are. And so I saw The Thing on YouTube, like a bunch of clips on things on YouTube. I think me and you saw the same video.
Probably, yeah.
Years and years before we met each other.
Mm-hmm.
There's like 10 parts VHS quality, and just I watched that, and next thing I knew, I think I was going to CD Plus or HMV, and they had a 4-pack of John Carpenter, where it was The Thing, Village of the Damned, They Live, and Prince of Darkness.
Yeah.
And I watched those on repeat. Like, I loved them. Like, and Prince of Darkness became my favorite. Although I watched that one the least. Or was it
Yeah.
The Fog was in that collection? Maybe not Village of the Damned. Because I love The Fog.
Like, I feel like I've seen your DVD, and I want to say Village of the Damned is the one on there, but I could be wrong.
Same with me. I know for sure They Live and The Thing are.
Yeah.
And again, even then, like, I still didn't fully grasp who John Carpenter was. Like, I knew I liked these movies, but I didn't really know what else he had done.
Yeah.
And then I met you, and it just became this waterfall of, like, all things John Carpenter.
Oh, yeah. Well, because, like, there was, like, similar to you, like the first Halloween I watched, like, when I was young, because, like, Halloween was a big thing in my house, like, just the holiday when I was a kid. Like, mom and dad were super into it. So, like, we just kind of have, like, on TV, they'd always buy the horror channel for the holiday season. So, like, they just kind of have stuff on loop. Watch a lot of those, like, Disney Halloween specials and all that jazz. But, the first Halloween was always on the TV, like, all the time, no matter, like, what the channels I'd be flipping, and, like, suddenly, like... And the weird thing is, I didn't watch it all the way through until I was probably around maybe 12 or 13. Because, like, I would always get freaked out, depending on, like, what section of the film I was watching. So, like, it would always be, like, just these sections of the film. The same thing kind of happened with American Werewolf in London. Like, it was a while before I actually watched the movie all the way through in one sitting. I would just catch, like, chunks here or there. So, and eventually I just sat down and watched it all. And, like, of course, like, the title was, like, John Carpenter's Halloween. I was like, oh, okay. Like, this guy made this movie. All right, cool. It's kind of like one of the things where, like, when you start recognizing a filmmaker, like, a lot of the ones, like, put the name above what they're doing and stuff like that.
I don't see a lot of that, though. Like, honestly, I see that, like even with Steven Spielberg, it's never like Steven Spielberg's. Sometimes it's like Steven Spielberg presents.
Yeah.
Carpenter was like the first director that I saw actively with, like...
Well, Hitchcock did it. And,
Yeah, I guess so.
And Orson Welles, I want to say, did it as well.
John Carpenter, exact same as those guys.
Yeah.
Same quality.
Well, it's like the reasoning behind him doing that was specifically because Hitchcock was one of his favorite directors. And he's just like, oh, how do you get recognized as the director? Well, obviously you got to, like,
Slap your name on it.
You got to slap your name on it, and then people just know it's your movie. And that's why he wanted, like, that was actually...
Why don't I do it with our movies?
Like, I want to say, how dare you? I want to say, that's actually one of the things, like, when he was making, I can't remember whether it was Assault on Precinct 13 or Halloween, but one of those ones, like, I don't know if he took a pay cut or what it was, but, like, specifically he wanted his name to be above the title, like, for that recognition. I'm not 100% sure which movie it was, that like started it, whether it was Assault on Precinct 13 or Halloween, but one of those ones started that whole tradition. And then from there, it just kind of like sprang up as like I watched the thing in 10 parts on YouTube, just like you did. And that was like the second Blu-ray I ever bought was The Thing, like that old Universal one.
Yeah.
And then eventually it just kind of turned into this like buying spree because I discovered Amazon was a thing, and I just started blind buying all of these movies, like Assault on Precinct 13, The Fog, Escape from New York. Like I blind bought so many films because I wanted to watch the rest of this guy's filmography, and progressively just like I just discovered that he was my favorite filmmaker because like I watched so many of these movies that were just home runs every single time. And then you get into his later career, and then like there's less home runs, but like even then you still watching them, you know it's a John Carpenter movie.
Well, again, the only one you really don't feel that is The Ward. Like
Yeah.
that's where,
The most latest one that he did.
and that's the one that really feels like it's just like, okay, so this is just generic horror movie.
When it's kind of sad because like that movie really should have like been more than it was, because it's like, oh, John Carpenter's come back to direct movies after like almost a decade. Like it should have been a bigger thing than it was, but unfortunately due to like budget and what have you, it just was not the big return that it should have been.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think the best way to start this off is kind of like start at the beginning and work our way down. But we're gonna start off talking about like some of his early work and work our way into like the golden age run, as I like to call it, and then kind of work our way down.
Okay, because we've already talked about your favorite era of his.
Yeah.
Because that tied into last week, where it was definitely like the 80s is kind of what started it. I really appreciate, the thing I appreciated actually is that me and you didn't see his first film until we knew each other.
Oh yeah, like
That's something we got to experience together was.
Dark Star, yeah.
And did it make you feel better about our feature film?
A little bit, yeah. Like when John Carpenter's first movie, like the one of the main threats was an alien that looked exactly like a beach ball.
Oh, it was 100% made out of a beach ball.
Yes.
And I love it. Like
Yeah,
it
it had these like little adorable duck feet. it was just like it was fun. And
Like
you could tell there was like a lot of like, again, when I talk about like bigger imagination than necessarily the budget provided, but they still made it work, because like that's also like because him and Dan O'Bannon, who would eventually go on to write Alien, and he directed Return of the Living Dead, like that was kind of like his first big film, because that was their student film, like their
yeah,
what do they call it,
their
master thesis or what have you.
Yeah.
And like from what I gather, like any of the stuff I've heard about, it's like it started off as like one of the most ambitious student films that the school had seen, and eventually turned into one of the most underwhelming feature films that the university had ever
Well,
produced.
didn't they almost get kicked out of school because of it?
I think so, like, because like they ended up having to get funding outside of I think they got funding outside of the school to like finish it because it ballooned out of control. And then it ended up like some people ended up seeing it, like Dan O'Bannon ended up like going off, and he was going to do effects on that Dune movie that was going to come out in the 70s. And of course John Carpenter like from there got to make Assault on Precinct 13 because of that film.
It's just such a weird movie too. Like it's not one that I'd sit there and say you need to go and watch this right now.
Yeah, but it's interesting because a lot of the ideas that are in that movie went on to be like kind of the basis for what Alien would become, but also you can kind of see the beginnings of like John Carpenter finding his style, because like it's not quite like Assault on Precinct 13 is kind of where that style really starts to come out.
Yeah.
Especially like because I'm trying to remember if that's the first one he did with Panavision anamorphic or not, like because that's always like one of the like the indicators of like John Carpenter's like anamorphic lenses, it's like that aspect ratio. Because it's been a little bit since I've seen Assault on Precinct 13, kind of think of it. Gotta rewatch that again soon.
Such a good movie.
Yeah, but but talking about Assault on Precinct 13, that's kind of a format of movie that he would revisit a couple of times, like going into his career. Like it's like kind of basically one location, a bunch of characters that we get to know like right away,
Yeah.
and then the threat comes from outside trying to get in. And you'd see that same kind of format get revisited in a couple movies he would do in the future. Namely, like Prince of Darkness, I'd say is like one of the big ones, but you could say like The Thing is like that on a bigger scale as well.
You see, honestly, you could even say the same thing with Halloween. Because you could say,
Yeah.
like, you literally say you introduce all these characters, just these regular people in the town, and then the outside force.
The Fog
like,
as well.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like the movie that really like started that type of story for him. And of course it's like it's not like the most like mile-a-minute thriller action flick, but like it's got really fun characters, and it's got some really good beats to it. And of course that's kind of like, because did he do the music for? I feel like I should know this. Did he do the music for Dark Star as well?
I'm like 99.9% sure that he did.
Yeah.
Honestly, he's done music for any film he directed.
Yeah. Like the only exception being Ennio Morricone for The Thing, but even then, Ennio Morricone was kind of emulating John Carpenter's style in a lot of places.
I thought it was a team effort there.
Well, it was basically John Carpenter wanted like he basically knew he wouldn't have the time to devote to doing the soundtrack, so they ended up getting a composer, and Ennio Morricone ended up basically doing a bunch of like themes that could be placed in different spots of the film.
Sorry, I was looking up his filmography, but I clicked on awards because I'm dumb.
It's all good.
Well, because like in with Assault on Precinct 13, it's funny because like you were telling me a long time ago that he's always wanted to make a Western.
Mm-hmm.
And he's never gotten to make a Western.
But he was able to essentially he was able to bring elements of Westerns into movies that he did to one degree or another. Like you've got like the Man with No Name gunslinger type that rolls into town. That's like some of the protagonists that he's done. You have some of the like motifs of Western type towns. Like obviously Assault on Precinct 13 is a remake of a Western. So like even though he's never gotten to do a Western, which is funny, like again, he would say like he didn't get into movies to make horror films. It's just what he ended up doing and he was good at it. He got into movies to make Westerns. And to one degree or another that influenced the way that he would do movies. And of course, from Assault on Precinct 13, we go into Halloween, which is the movie that really like kick-started his career and, for better or for worse, like changed horror films for a very long time. Oh yes, that very iconic theme that has been played and overplayed so many different places.
Well, it's interesting because I don't think I'd say that like Halloween is either one of our favorite slashers.
I wouldn't say no. Like, and like I wouldn't even like it is definitely like in his top 10 best movies for sure, but like it's definitely not the most impressive movie he's done, but I think it still holds up in a lot of ways.
Well, and again, it's also got to be held up in the amount that it shook up an entire genre.
No, exactly. Like, and it took a lot of the elements that like would eventually like, because Halloween is still like technically pre-slasher. Like Friday the 13th, most people credit as like the movie that like really started the slasher genre, but Halloween is the movie that kind of brought all those elements together the first time.
Yeah.
Because you got like the masked killer, which is like you take that from Texas Chainsaw, all that stuff. You've got the
final girl,
the body count, all that kind of stuff. And like it's not even like, unlike a lot of slasher films that came after it, it's not an especially gory film. It's very subtle in a lot of its violence. It's very, the violence comes quick and is over, and it just kind of lets you rest in it.
Yeah, and it wasn't about doing crazy over the top kills. It was just about getting right to it, you know.
No, exactly. Like deadly efficiency, which like efficiency is what I would say a lot of John Carpenter's movies have going for them. Like there's not a whole lot of fat you could trim off of most of his movies, I would say.
I don't know about any of them.
Like a good majority of them, I would say, like are like very efficiently told films, with the exception of the greatest scene in like the greatest fight scene in any movie ever, They Live, which you cannot cut out of that film, but it goes on for way longer than it necessarily needs to. Well, why would you have it any other way? Like we'll get to They Live. We'll get to that fight scene when we get there.
You mean you'll get to the fight scene? Literally, I could just let you talk about John Carpenter for like the next hour, and I'd be like, "Oh, this is educational. This is great."
Oh yes, I'm well informed on the subject, as it were.
Me in the background. No, keep talking, yeah.
But I think you're gonna want to talk about this next one, because I want to say this one is probably one of, like, I would say this is probably one of your favorites for sure. The Fog.
No, I have never seen it.
You never? Yes, you have. Don't you?
Never seen The Fog.
You can lie to the viewers all you want, Ethan, but I know for a fact you've seen The Fog multiple occasions.
No, I have never seen The Fog.
That's not true.
It's true.
Okay.
I have never seen The Fog starring Tom Welling. I've never seen
Oh
The Fog.
God. That's almost a podcast unto itself, is all the remakes of John Carpenter's films.
There hasn't been that many.
There's been enough.
Halloween and The Fog.
Oh, you're not gonna make a joke about the Thing prequel being a remake?
I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
I mean, so did the studios, but that's just
That's true. That's why they're just doing a fresh one now, based off of Frozen Hell. Oh, it's a whole new book. We're just gonna adapt that. Oh, it's not a remake of The Thing. It's an adaptation of Frozen Hell.
I wonder if the creature's gonna look the exact same as John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh my God.
How does it have Norris's face? How?
That's so weird.
But like, yeah, I don't know why. I have no clue why. Because I love Tom Welling as an actor.
Mm.
That is a remake that you think I would have seen.
You would assume so.
Because it came out around that time that me and all my friends were watching horror movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But instead, I somehow saw the original one, and just, it had such an effect on me. I love it. I love it so much. I love the design of the pirates. I love the story with the town.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just fun, and it's all weirdly not connected but interconnected with each other. Like, it's so...
Well, because it kind of starts off it doesn't bury the lead at all that like something weird is happening in this town. Like the first
whole fireplace scene, or campfire. That's the word I'm thinking.
Yeah, like it
that
starts
whole campfire scene.
It starts off like
with that clock and the...
Yeah, it's so
good.
Like the soundtrack, like it's a perfect like it's the probably his best like spooky tone as far as a movie is concerned.
If I was to show a younger kid any of John Carpenter's films, that would be the one, because it's scary, but it's not like scary.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, like, I don't know, like the ghosts would probably freak a kid out quite a bit, like the ghost pirates.
And like, I'm not saying like a small child.
Of course, but like 8 or 9.
I was gonna say like 10 or 11. Yeah,
fair enough.
Like that would be the one I'd go to, because like Halloween's a little too graphic.
Yep.
The Thing is a little way too...
I don't know.
Blah.
I remember the scene where the Thing bursts out of Norris and goes blah.
Blah. Like, again, like you said it, like the Fog is actually just a really good Halloween movie. Like, it's a really good just ghost story.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
I love ghost stories. They're fun.
Yeah. But in addition to that, like, it's, again, when we talk about, like, there's so many characters in that film and so many little stories going on, and, like, it's all basically building the picture of, like, this small town and, like, what it's all about. Like, you know so much about the town and the people in it by, like, the time that, like, the ghosts really start coming out. Like, you care about all those characters. Like...
And you're, like, rooting for them to survive the night, and it's... it's interesting. Like, and it's got one of the best jump scares in any John Carpenter movie.
Oh, easily.
Because it's like it's not like a cheap jump scare. It's not like a, oh, and then we got you.
Are you talking about the radio, like the piece of wood?
The boat.
Oh yeah, the
The
boat.
boat with Jamie Lee Curtis and the.
Well, because it fakes you out first with like.
And you're like, oh, good. All right, that's. Oh my goodness, what's that?
Oh my God, it's a dead body. Yep.
So yeah, like it just overall, it is to me one of the strongest films of his.
Mm-hmm. And like that's also one I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's one where they actually like had to go back and like film more stuff to like they wanted to make it more. They wanted to make it more brutal in some places, but also like when they were done filming, I want to say it was like 70 minutes or something like that, and they had to like.
They're like, this is too short.
Yep. And that's the other thing that's nice about it. It's like it's a very brisk watch. Like it's got a really good tone, it's got characters you enjoy, and like it's just a good time, I would say. Like really good Halloween vibe film to it. Like I would say like it's almost like more of a Halloween spooky type tone than probably the first Halloween is.
100%, because the first Halloween's still more shocking, I guess. It's more trying to be like, oh, something's gonna get you. Whereas like there's just again an overall spooky tone.
100%. It's a really good just ghost story. And one of the fun facts about The Fog is that is the movie where he met Rob Bottin that would go on to do the special effects for The Thing. Because Rob Bottin plays the lead pirate of the group there.
Isn't that also like the only film that Jamie Lee Curtis and Janet Leigh ever acted in together?
Well, aside from Halloween H2O, of course, where she has a brief cameo.
No one wants to talk about H2O.
I like H2O. I think it would have been better if John Carpenter actually directed it, but
I like H2O as well, but mainly because of
like
water. And
I think
stuff.
I've talked to you about this before, but you know the reason why John Carpenter didn't direct that movie? Because like Jamie Lee Curtis wanted him to direct it.
Yeah.
Literally, like he's like, okay, I'll direct it, but I want to get paid this much, and they just said no.
John, why?
Well, he's just like, all right, I'll do it, but like I want to get paid what I'm worth. Because you guys have screwed me over in the past on these Halloween movies.
What, John? No, we haven't.
What? You're crazy, John. Why don't you smoke some weed and play some more video games, John?
And he did because he wasn't employed.
Yeah, it's true. John Carpenter's having a delightful retirement, quote unquote. And then from there, after The Fog, we go on to a movie that like has, for better or worse, been ripped off multiple times. Escape from, I mean, you could say that about a lot of his movies, but like Escape from New York is definitely one of the most like ripped off movies when it comes to like a lot of like B films, that for sure.
Now, where do you think the cutoff is for like his early work versus like the golden era of?
I guess yeah, we didn't really like. I guess we kind of like just phased into the golden age without really talking about like the end of the earlier, because like to me Halloween to me is the end, like that's really the movie that like transitioned him into like making bigger budget movies. So
I don't want to say The Fog.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would honestly agree with that, but like
I feel like that's the crossover film, right? Because it's a slightly bigger budget. He's got some names in there.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to just the overall feel of the story, it's still a very low budget-esque type of movie.
Like, I know we just walked away from The Fog, but like The Fog has one of my favorite like character intro exchanges where like Jamie Lee Curtis, like she's like a hitchhiker and she gets picked up by Tom Atkins, and like the first thing that like one of the first things she says to him is like, I just have to ask you straight up, are you insane? And he just pauses for a minute. He's like, "Yes,
Are you weird?" Was the question.
Sorry, yes. Are you weird? Yes, I am weird. And they like have a laugh about it. And she's like, "Oh, thank God, the last guy I was hitchhiking with was so normal, I almost died."
Was that with a family she was with or something like that, or like
no, it was just like
some dude.
Yeah, it was just like the last guy that I was driving with was so normal, like, and it's just immediately you like both those characters because of exchanges like that. Like, he's really good with those kind of interactions.
it's just such a weird relationship between the two of them.
Oh yeah. Well, because Tom Atkins he's just
So
some
old.
he's just some guy who's just
He's just an old guy.
well, no, he wasn't. That's the thing. He wasn't like that old in that movie. He just
He just always looked that
Tom Atkins
old.
always looks old. um, yeah. Speaking of Tom Atkins, he's also in Escape from L.A. in a very small role.
See, the escape movies are ones that like I like, but I've
Mhm.
never been like crazy about.
Yeah. Well, those are movies that like I I feel like again we're talking about like the concept being bigger than the budget. Like there are a lot of scenes like there isn't a single like digital effect in that film, but they pull off some like kind of quote unquote digital effects with it. Like the scene where Snake is flying into New York and he's like they show like the heads up display. Literally what they did for that is they got a bunch of cardboard boxes, painted them black, and then put a bunch of like green like glow in the dark tape on them to like have these like buildings. um and also like that's I want to say that's the film that James Cameron actually did like matte paintings on. Again, like one of his more like early jobs as it were.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course like it's not the first time he worked with Kurt Russell, but like that would go to Elvis, which again would kind of fall in that early era. Like he did a TV movie with him about Elvis, and of course Kurt Russell's like just one of the best actors ever in my opinion. But like Escape from New York was him wanting to play against type because like again he grew up as a Disney kid, like he was kind of like more that straight laced type character, like the funny guy, and that was him really wanting to do something completely different.
And he did though, and that's the weird. Like, I'm not a huge fan of his performance in that.
But it's so delightful. Like he's playing Gruffy McGrufferson, like I'm Mr. Cool Guy, like and like
Yeah, but that's what doesn't work with it, man. That's what it's like. I miss it. Like that's like, dude, man. Peak Kurt Russell is Big Trouble in Little China. Like that's where he.
I mean,
peaks.
obviously we can agree Big Trouble is awesome. Like we'll get to Big Trouble
like,
in Little China.
Because I like all of his performances, but I agree with you that he's trying to break that brand of Disney kid.
Yeah,
But like
he's
he's
Escape
going
from New
too
York.
far.
But Snake is such a like I feel like Snake is a bit of an underrated character because like he's one of the ultimate like not give a fuck protagonists. I'm sorry for swearing, but it's true. Like he he literally is only doing this because otherwise they would just probably kill him. But he's such a badass that they need him to do this job for them.
Tom Atkins was 45 when he did The Fog.
He was 45.
Yeah, you're like, you don't look that old. He was 45.
Oh my god. Well, that is weird then.
Told you.
It's fine. It's Tom Atkins.
It's that mustache.
It's that mustache.
But no, like that's again the problem I have with his performance, and the problem that I have, I like Escape from New York, but I have to take it with such a tongue in cheek kind of thing, because it feels like it's trying to be an edgy '70s sci-fi film. Like it does.
Like I guess to agree,
The corporations have taken over.
I'd say it's a little more post-apocalyptic than anything else. Like, and it is a fun concept. Like crime became so bad in 1997. Like I guess it would have been before 1997, but the movie takes place in the far distant future of 1997, and there's so much crime in America that they just converted New York into a prison, and then they just created a wall around it so prisoners couldn't get back into America. It's just a fun concept, and then terrorists like crash Air Force One into New York, and they have to send the ultimate badass Snake Pliskin, who is on the run, like he's a former soldier on the run, gets caught, and then they're like, yeah, you're gonna go do this because you're the only guy that can do it, and also we hate you. So
And he's like, well, I hate you too, and I'm not gonna do it. And they're like,
okay,
all right.
there's a bomb in your neck.
There's a what in my where? Oh wait, don't tell me.
Oh my god, what's that? But no, like I like Escape from New York is like it's not like a mile a minute thrill ride like the poster would have you believe, but I think it's a really fun watch and has a lot of fun characters.
I agree.
It's freaking Ernest Borgnine as a cab driver in this like prison city, just casually throwing Molotovs at people, shit like that.
This is how you deal with this problem.
I'm telling you, Snake, you don't walk around here at night.
I swear to God, Snake, I don't know.
Harry Dean Stanton, just having a blast. But yeah, no, I think it's a fun time. Isaac Hayes is the Duke of New York.
Oh, in the movie, you mean?
Yes, of course. I mean, Isaac Hayes is the Duke of New York even now.
He's dead.
He's dead.
Yeah, try as I might, assault on precinct 3. Just fire. Give you lots to edit out.
Of course.
Yeah, no, just I don't know what it is. The escape films just never really. I'm never in the mood to watch them. I'm never like, yeah.
Okay.
Like I don't dislike them when they're on. They're like, yeah, these are fun. But like I
Well, it's like,
never
if
feel
you-
the draw.
Like if you had a choice between like Escape from New York or like Road Warrior, you'd choose Road Warrior.
No, I'd probably pick a different film entirely.
Wow. We'll talk about Mad Max on another podcast.
Oh, we're just gonna talk about all the things you like now. I
Yeah,
see how it is.
If you're gonna have me on this podcast, yes.
You're fired.
As long as, well, I mean, you already paid me, so.
Exactly. So you're fired.
Oh my god.
For standing there, you're fired.
What are you saying there? Well, in that case, let's move on to we'll briefly talk about The Thing, because we already talked ad nauseum about it last week.
The film that almost killed John Carpenter.
It's true. Like, if you look at pictures of John Carpenter before, like, when he was making The Thing, and then after The Thing came out, like, the dude aged, like, a decade because of working on that film and its reception. And it's, like, that was, like, his first, like, big studio movie. Like, that was gonna be the thing that really, like, put him into, like, Spielberg territory, you know?
It was The Thing.
It certainly was. And then it just got critically and financially destroyed in the theater. And, like, yeah, man, I can't imagine just how crushing that's gotta be. Because even, like, people have asked him about it before, like, movies that he's done that, like, were, like, cult hits now, and people are like, oh, how do you feel about, doing, like, all these movies that became, like, so popular later on in life? He's like, oh, it's great, doesn't help me a whole lot at the time, though.
It's true.
Like, it's another quote that kind of relates from, Simon Barrett talking about, like, him and Adam Wingard's movies that, like, they'd make and then they wouldn't make any money. He's just like, when people come up to us and they say, you make all these cool cult movies, all you're saying is that our movies are failures. And it's kind of true. Like, it's great that movies find an audience later on in life, but it doesn't necessarily help the filmmaker in its time, you know?
No, exactly.
But no, like, obviously, though, The Thing stood the test of time. Fantastic film. If you want to learn more about our thoughts on The Thing, you can just go back and watch last week's episode. Next up on the
I thought you'd
docket.
talk more about The Thing. I thought you'd talk more about The Thing.
You thought so?
Yeah, I thought you'd have more anecdotes and.
Like, there really isn't, like, I mean, again, like, what more is there to say than we talked last week, you
I
know?
don't remember what we talked about last week.
Like, we talked for, it basically went from, like, the 1980s podcast to, like, us talking about The Thing for, like, a half hour. Like,
You like that movie?
it's a great movie. Like, unless there's anything else you'd like to add.
I don't remember.
Well, there you go.
I don't remember what we talked about, man. Like, we talked about so much last week.
Indeed.
Like a mile a minute. It's like,
You know what else goes a mile a minute? Christine.
that's next?
That's next, Christine.
It's John Carpenter tackles Stephen King.
Yeah,
And it worked.
100%.
It's such a weird movie, but, like, it's such a good
It's just the heartwarming story of a man falling madly in love with his car
one. A
and
boy in his car.
a boy in his car. His boy's homicidal, seemingly unstoppable
Ghost car.
Ghost car.
Isn't like the one of the few adaptations Stephen King like really loves?
I believe so. Yeah, it was like it's kind of Christine's kind of a hard concept to fuck up at the end of the day.
It's about a car that's trying to kill people. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like it's not a super complex story and all that, but like it's kind of the movie that Carpenter needed to do to like kind of get back on track as far as his career was concerned, you know? Um and like it's got probably one of the coolest sequences like in any of his movies where the car puts itself back together. Like it's so like when you like read about how they did that sequence and like having the hydraulics like crush it from the inside and then they reverse the footage, like just all the stuff they did to that vehicle in reverse, and also how many of those like classic muscle cars that they destroyed during production.
Didn't they only have like 5?
No, I think they had about 12 of them that they destroyed. Like there was one that like they just destroyed brutally for that sequence, but then of course there's the one that like was like a wreck from the beginning. They had a couple that were specifically for driving. There was one that they lit on fire. Like I want to say they had 10 or 12. I could be wrong about that, but like they destroyed a lot of those cars.
Good.
Oh yes.
Good. Destroy them all.
It makes if you're into muscle cars, it'll make you cry what they do to those cars. Because they had to back then. They couldn't just CG a vehicle like on fire. They had to light that thing on fire.
Ah, they're just quitters.
How dare you? And then of course after that he did probably like I don't. It's not like the least John Carpenter movie that he's done, but like it's definitely up there as far as like it's not one a lot of people talk about as Starman, which is actually one that I only recently watched. But it's a very different alien coming to Earth film than The Thing is.
No, it's the same. It's the exact same movie.
It's the exact same.
Yep.
I remember the scene where Jeff Bridges bursts out of someone's chest and grows spider legs and crawls on the floor.
Basically, yeah. Oh no, you're thinking his autobiography.
Oh yes, of course. Jeff Bridges' autobiography?
Yeah, he's powered by Duracell.
Duracell. What aliens are coming down from... Oh no, wait, is that... No, that... I get it. I always get those, like... My impression of his Duracell commercials, like, starts turning into Sam Elliott. Guts, glory, Duracell.
You just gotta add diabetes in there, and then you got
Diabetes.
Wilford Brimley in there, too.
Oh, yeah.
When I'm looking to cure my diabetes, I get into my Ford Ranger, powered by Duracell batteries.
Guts, glory, diabetes.
That's what you get for eating sugary guts.
There you go. But no, like, it's... Again, it's got some really interesting sequences in it, and it's definitely more of a, like... It's got less of a nihilistic feel than a lot of his other movies. Like, there's kind of, like, a bit of that, like... It's got, like... There's a road trip aspect to it, like...
There's optimism to it.
Yeah, compared to a lot of his other films, it's way more optimistic, but... And that's probably one of the reasons why it probably feels less like a John Carpenter movie than a lot of the other ones, because... Ultimately, they exist in, like, a very cynical world. Most of his movies do. So.
And he's just a cynical girl.
Indeed. But I like it. It's a, like, good movie, all things considered. You can't see this, but he is now laying, like, backwards on the couch.
I am getting blood flow to my brain, so I'm awake.
I see.
I won't be sleeping like this. Sorry, you're lulling me to sleep with all your talk about John Carpenter.
I mean, fair enough.
And then John Carpenter. I don't even know why I'm tired suddenly. I have no idea what hit me.
Have some more coffee, man. It's there.
I had a full cup.
You can have some more coffee.
Coffee doesn't make you less tired. It's a myth.
It can make you...
You gotta drink water.
That's true.
Get hydrated.
And you know, a movie had a lot of water in it.
Oh, that's convenient.
Big Trouble in Little China.
It didn't have any water in it at all.
Yeah, they literally go through the sewers to get to Lopan space.
Sewer water, that doesn't count.
It's still water. You tell the turtles that they don't live near water.
They live in New York. Of course they live near water.
Of course. But yes, Big Trouble in Little China is just awesome. Like,
honestly, that's one that surprises me how many people, like, working at Sunrise. People will be looking for that movie all the time.
It's a fun movie. Like, it's probably... And it's another movie that, unfortunately, did not do well, but that's because it was a movie produced by Fox, and they decided to put it out, like, the same week as Aliens. one of the most highly anticipated sequels of all time.
True.
Like, I don't know why they did that. Like, it's the same as like Universal putting the thing out like
During E.T.
like a like I don't know if it was the week after or 2 weeks after, but yeah, it's like, why would you do that? Why would you make like? I guess the theory is like those like the E.T. and the Thing. You could argue that like those were not going to compete with each other, arguably, but like Big Trouble in Little China and Aliens probably have very similar audiences as far as like who's going to the theater.
Imagine Jack Burton going up against aliens.
Oh, what the hell? What is that? Don't tell me. The same movie.
Exactly. It's such a weird.
I just want to get my truck back from those xenomorphs.
Either way, he's xenophobic.
He certainly is.
But like, it's such a weird movie. Like, Big Trouble is such a bizarre film, but it's just delightful.
Oh yeah.
But it makes no sense. But the beauty of it is where you're on the ride with Jack Burton.
Yeah, like
Anytime he's confused, you're also just like, wait, what?
yeah, like our lead character is just as clueless about everything that's going on as the audience is, and you're just along with him. And the actual main character is friggin'
The actual hero?
yeah, I would say so. Like it's a fun thing where your protagonist is the bumbling sidekick, and then the character, like the guy who would be the sidekick in a lot of these movies, is actually the hero that knows what he's doing and is capable. It's a very, dare I say, it subverts expectations.
But
Ethan.
it does, like, at the same time, though, it also, like Jack Burton is still the hero. Like, at the end of the day, he's the one who, like, saves the day.
Yeah, like like the thing is, like, he probably and the thing is, he wins the day by sheer like, you could argue it's his skill, but it's sheer dumb luck that he actually.
Because they show off that skill earlier in the film.
It's not a skill; it's all in the reflexes, Ethan.
Also, James Wong, is it?
James Wong.
James Wong. No.
James Wong is a
James
director.
Hong?
James Hong as Lopan is one of the most delightful villains in any movie.
He is just, I love that man.
See, it's this shit right here that pisses me off.
For what?
Oh, this is one of his lines in the movie where he's like looks at the security camera
Oh.
and all of them are coming in. He's like, "You'll see this shit right here. It really pisses me off."
That's why I was getting Victor Wong
Yeah, Victor Wong.
and James Hong.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Victor Wong is amazing.
How did you get up there? It wasn't easy. It's like, that's all you get. Like, it's
He's
just
so great.
yeah.
He's so great. Like he's just one of those, like, both of those actors, if they're in a movie, they just elevate it.
Oh,
I want to
100%.
say he plays like the grandpa in the Three Ninjas series.
I think so. Like,
And it's just, okay, I guess.
sure, why
And
not?
then isn't he in Tremors as well?
Yes, he is. He's yeah. Is Victor Chang? I want like
he just kept his name Victor.
like his like I'm trying to remember what his name is in that, but like it's Chang's convenience store, like the convenience store in Perfection, and he's also the one who gives them the name Graboids. It's like, you'll be sorry if you don't give them a name. But he's just delightful in everything he's in.
Yeah, like he's such a good.
100%, man.
And then James Hong is just iconic.
Oh yeah, he's great.
His voice.
Yeah, man. Like whether it's like voice acting.
He's still acting too.
Oh yeah, James Hong's still doing shit.
What was he in recently?
Oh,
Wasn't there like a brand new like big title that he was in that we were like, oh my gosh, James Hong, yeah.
I think so. 1 second here. I'm curious about this.
This surprisingly has woken me up.
Oh shit! Apparently he's going to be playing like he's going to be in the Gremlins animated TV show as like the grandpa from the shop.
Wait, they're making a
Yeah, they're doing an animated Gremlins TV show.
is Netflix doing it?
I think so. It's either Netflix or Amazon. Well, he's Sensei in Batman and like Way of the Dragon, which is an animated movie we both enjoyed.
I thought there was a big one that me and you were both like, what? I'm not seeing it. What the heck? Ethan, you silly man.
Well, he's in the last Sharknado.
Yes,
Apparently,
that was clearly
that
it.
was obviously the big movie. But yeah, James Hong's still going strong.
He's just so delightful.
Indeed. But yes, and of course the Big Trouble in Little China is also where the me and you quote it all the time, like just Jack Burton's confusion lines.
Oh no, what's that? Don't tell me.
Hey, someone better tell me what's going on around here.
We must move quickly before it comes back. What come back?
What come back? like like there's a whole montage on YouTube of just like Jack Burton, like it's like Kurt Russell doesn't know what's going on. And
It's true.
it's just lines from Big Trouble in Little China. Just like, oh, what the hell? But yeah, very delightful movie. Big Trouble in Little China. I'd highly recommend that to a lot of people. It's just a fun action adventure.
Well, exactly. It doesn't really play into the horror trope. It's like a fun action kung fu weird. I don't know. It's weird, but it's so fun.
Yeah, like it's a weird like genre mixer as it were. Well, and that's the other thing too. Like John Carpenter definitely known more for his horror movies, but he did do a lot of these other like more like different genre ones as well.
Well, because he'd jump into even when he did his horror movies, he would jump into sci-fi and fantasy stuff.
No, exactly. Like it's never quite one thing, you know. And from there, yeah, next on the docket, and this is one like I feel like you're gonna have stuff to say about this one. Prince of Darkness.
Yes. Alice Cooper's in it, and that's all that there is to say.
I mean, so the discussion about Prince of Darkness is the same as Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare.
Yes, it's the exact same movie.
Yep, Alice Cooper's in it, and that's it.
And that's it. That's
and
all.
that's it.
No, like Prince of Darkness is a weird one for me because you think that it wouldn't be something that I really enjoy, but it's so weird. It's so weird. It's got, in my opinion, one of the best pieces of horror with those flashback videos.
Oh yeah, the VHS
they're
dream
slow,
sequences.
They're so creepy, but they are so effective.
Oh yeah, like, and the sound design on them is incredibly well done.
And it's part of the storytelling. At first, you're like, "Oh, it's weird and creepy. I don't like that." But then, like, the more you learn about it, you're like, "Oh, this is like an important like." It's not just a weird dream sequence to freak you out. It's like got important information here, like.
Mm-hmm.
And the story is so complex that I'm still unpacking it.
Yeah, it's like I think we briefly mentioned Prince of Darkness last week, and it is one of those movies like where you kind of like it is one of those movies you have to watch more than once to really like take in exactly what is happening in the plot, because it just gets so weird and like talks about so many like metaphysical concepts.
Well, and it all starts with, like, isn't it just like I always get confused at how it starts, like how they get into that situation, because it's like, yes, this group of students are gonna go and study a church.
Well, it's this
Do they find the canister in the church first?
Well, because like it's Donald Pleasant's character is
He calls them, right?
yeah, because like one of the priests that like is like basically the caretaker of the anti-god goo dies, and it's kind of left to him, but like more stuff keeps happening since the death of this guy, so they call it in because it's not you find out that like it's not just a religious thing, it goes into science as well.
Well, it postulates the question as to whether or not God was an alien.
Yep. Oh,
which is just funny.
Yeah, it does Prometheus before Prometheus.
Yeah, and then it touches on so many weird theories and suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fascinating.
Yeah, like the idea of like it's essentially like takes the concept of like matter and antimatter and applies it to religion and alternate dimensions, because they talk about God, and then like if there's God, then there's anti-God.
Yeah,
and the same thing with like if there's like Christ, then there's like antichrist, like, but they applies it to like the ideas of like alternate dimensions and physics. So it's a weird combination of like religion and science merged into one, which is really neat.
But all of it's overshadowed by the sheer horror of them being picked off one by one.
Yeah, and again, like going back to Escape from LA, where like you get your cast of characters, we get introduced to them, and then slowly this like horde of these people that are being affected by like the the anti-god start like encroaching in, but then you also get a bit of like the Thing type body horror as well, because like it infects people, and then like when they're infected they slowly start to decompose and they try to like pass on to another host. Like it's
Or they just lose their mind. Like, dude, one of the best performances in that movie is I can't remember the name of the actor, but when he starts singing Amazing Grace.
oh yeah, like he's been infected, he
it's
starts singing
so
Amazing Grace,
haunting.
and then he just kills himself.
It's
Like
so haunting. It's so great. I love it.
yeah, no, it's good shit, man. Like it's just so weird, and like the soundtrack's super haunting as well. Definitely like it's not a soundtrack that people talk about as much when they talk about John Carpenter's movies, but I think Prince of Darkness has like one of the best soundtracks of any of his films as far as being effective is concerned.
I agree.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, Prince of Darkness. And that's also like I guess we didn't talk about this when talking about the Thing, but Prince of Darkness is the second installment of the Apocalypse trilogy that he did. There are kind of these like thematically, like it's a thematic trilogy in the same way that like the Cornetto trilogy is a thematic trilogy.
Yeah.
Like they're not necessarily connected story wise, but they share a lot of the same themes, being like apocalyptic storylines. And the first one was the Thing, and the second one being Prince of Darkness, and then In the Mouth of Madness is the last installment, which we will get to in a little bit here.
Do you read Sutter Kane?
Do you read Sutter Kane?
I do.
What? But you know who doesn't read Sutter Kane is Roddy Piper's character in They Live.
Are you saying he can't read?
I'm not saying he can't read. I'm just saying he doesn't have time. He's a working man.
You don't know.
I mean, I suppose I don't know, but like
Maybe he enjoys a good book on the weekend.
he seems like he would. Like oh crap, I always forget like his character's name.
It's because it's overshadowed by him being Rowdy Roddy Piper.
It's true. And that is a movie like
What about Keith David's character name? Do you remember his character name?
yeah, it's friggin' Keith David.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like it's their personalities outweigh their characters because they're Keith David and Rowdy Roddy Piper.
No, exactly. And like They Live, I would say is like
Keith David in that scene fighting in the fight scene that you want to talk about.
mm-hmm.
That entire scene is essentially him doing a Kurt Russell impression.
Kind of.
Just like, no, stop it. No, wait, what? What's going on? What?
You, you mother. Oh yeah, so good. But They Live is in like it's probably like I would say it would be in my top 3 of his movies. Like, in addition to just being like a really entertaining film, it takes on the dangers of consumerism and Reaganomics in a way that not a lot of movies dare to do. Because
Gave some classic action lines.
oh yes, like if you've ever played Duke Nukem, of course you know the like I've come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of gum. That came from They Live.
I am all out of bubblegum.
And I'm all out of bubblegum. And I'm all out of ass.
It's not me saying this.
Oh my god.
They wanted Kurt Russell originally, didn't they?
There were a couple of people who they considered before Roddy Piper, I believe. But I know John Carpenter wanted to work with him specifically.
Well, and if they didn't, they wouldn't have got that fight scene.
Yeah, well, and I know Roddy Piper, like, because he wanted to get more into movies and, like, loved John Carpenter's work. Because I know, at least, like, him talking about it, like, they wanted him, like, Vince McMahon wanted him to do movies, like, through their company. He's like, no, I want to do real movies. So he's like, yeah, I want to work with John Carpenter and shit. And, like, it's honestly kind of a shame that, like, he wasn't a bigger movie star. Like, again, I'm not saying like Roddy Piper's like a masterclass actor by any means, but like he's a good like leading man, fun character actor, you know? Just in the few things that I've actually seen him act in, he's just a fun time.
Get off me. And Keith David. I love Keith David.
Well, Keith David's just great. Of course, like, worked with John Carpenter on The Thing and then came in for
Get
this
me
one.
out of this chair. Come on.
Get
Come
me out of
on.
here. Cut me loose, damn it. Like,
And then that performance carries over into They Live.
yeah. Well, and like again, you want to talk about characters that like, actually, honestly, like Keith David is the character who didn't want to be involved at all. Because like, he's literally like, what are you looking at? Like, Roddy Piper's character like keeps like, they're in this like kind of homeless shelter type area, like where it's being taken care of by people in the church. And of course there's little hints as to what's going on like at the beginning of the film and all that. Like literally the film starts with like you see They Live painted on the side of a railway train as Roddy Piper's rolling into town. Again, man with no name rolling into town.
Who is they?
They Live. Well, they're a bunch of capitalist aliens that have come from space.
But that's like so that's actually been, maybe you have the answer. The title confuses me. Because of course they live. Of course they live. They're alive. They're walking among us.
Well, it's the first part of a two-part sentence. Like it's they live, we sleep. Because the whole thing,
Oh.
because like they're the ones who are living like lavish lives and all that, and like living the fancy life, big cars, big houses, things like that. And then regular people, like, they're asleep to it. They're not aware of what's happening because they don't have the glasses.
Apparently, I've been asleep through that movie so many times that I never picked up on the...
It's all there. The social commentary's all there, Ethan.
Did we ever talk about the clothing line Obey? And like I did research into it.
Yeah, this is something you know more about than me. Like, I just saw it and I was just like, hey, that's from They Live.
And then anyone you point that out to, they're like, no, it's not. It's a clothing line.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was doing some research into it because someone tried to tell me it was connected to 1984, which is like...
No.
But like I guess because there's a lot of parallels between 1984 and They Live.
Yeah, like They Live is like a
sci-fi version of 1984.
Well, 1984 is like, it is a bit sci-fi.
It's
like it's dystopian at the end of the day, and like there's a bit of that in They Live, but it's like dystopia. Like
it's a secret dystopia.
It's instead of like being like a sci-fi dystopia, it's just real life.
Yeah, we are in the dystopia,
man.
Oh yeah, like we're living in this book.
Like,
and like, man, 1984, bruh.
Yeah.
Like life is like 1984. My Starbucks was made wrong, and it's just like 1984, man. They're like just watching us,
but like,
and do nothing.
But if you if you put on the glasses, the cup just says consume. And
well, yeah, and like that's just been my life, man. It's just been my life. My life is 1984, bro.
Dude, my life is 1984.
And it's interesting. So like, and there were people who I pointed that out to, and I was like, oh yeah, that's from They Live, and because the font's the exact same.
Yes, 100%. That is.
I got told by somebody, no, it's not. It has nothing to do with that movie. I don't even know what that movie is. And I was doing research into it because I'm like, no, I'm like 100% sure. And sure enough, they got inspired by it, and there was actually a lawsuit where they actually had to settle.
They had to pay John Carpenter a lot of money.
I think so. I think it went to John Carpenter.
Well,
it might have gone to the
studio.
But yeah, they had to settle because it's the exact same font.
100%. Well, and like, in case you're not 100% sure what we're talking about in regards to They Live, like, Roddy Piper's character, he ends up seeing like all this weird shit going on in this church across from like the homeless place that he's at, because like he's like a drifter. Like, he just goes from city to city looking for work.
I thought he was a wrestler.
Well, that's who he is in real life. I mean, like, obviously he has wrestling training in the movie as well. We'll get to it. But then he goes, like, there's this raid that happens, and like the guys who are there end up leaving, and like the priest that's there gets arrested. And Roddy Piper ends up like,
It's just like a whole box of
glasses. Yeah, he gets a whole box of these sunglasses because he's like, I have to like figure out what's going on. So he ends up taking this box, and it's just full of sunglasses. And he's like, what the hell? Like, why are there just a box of sunglasses? And he puts them on, and it reveals the world in black and white. Symbolism.
Yes.
Yes, obvious symbolism. And it shows like he puts them on, and suddenly he looks at like a billboard, and it'll just say like, consume and make more,
or obey,
like
or
obey. He looks down at his wallet, like, and he's got some cash in, and he just says, "This is your god." Um, yeah, like there's these little radio things that just are sending out a subliminal signal to just sleep, sleep, sleep. Like,
and then you start seeing the aliens.
yep, and then he looks up at a fancy, an old white guy in a business suit, and it's a freaking alien.
What are you looking at? Nothing.
Yep. And he's just like, yeah, like all these, like, you start seeing all the, like, the people who are, like, really, like, dressed really well and, like, getting promotions, things like that. And, like, some of them are human, but a lot of these people are aliens, and you have no idea because the signal is going out that's making them look like human beings.
You're all right.
This one,
Real-
fucking... this is the most that, like, anyone swore on your podcast, isn't it?
You're welcome.
I'm sorry. This one, real fucking ugly. And it's just, he's so
We have
delightful.
one who can see.
Yep. Oh, it's one of the creepiest moments in that movie. Like, suddenly there's like, the aliens have like this watch that lets them communicate with each other. And like, suddenly all these like aliens are just walking towards them, like describing him into this watch. And he's just, I don't like this one bit.
No, I think the creepiest scene is at the end when like all the aliens are being revealed to everybody, and like the one guy's just having sex with this girl,
and you find out Siskel and Ebert are aliens.
Are they both?
Yeah, like they're both aliens because they're talking about the movies of John Carpenter and George Romero, and now like the senseless violence of the media. See, that's a funny joke. Like that's how you reference it.
Did they get Siskel and Ebert's permission for that, or get them
like,
in on it?
It kind of sounds like Siskel. Like when you listen to the like when the guy's talking, it kind of sounds like Siskel. I have no idea if it's actually him, but that'd be hilarious if it was. But yeah, like I love that scene at the end when like everyone can see the aliens. It's just so many good scenes. But yeah, like eventually he meets up with Keith David's character, who's just like screwed off at this point, and like he's just trying to like work and make money so he can like send it home to his family, things like that. And Roddy Piper really wants him to put on these sunglasses.
Come on, man, just put on the glasses.
Which begins the greatest fight scene in film history, in which a wrestling match breaks out between Keith David and Roddy Piper, and it is the most glorious scene of all time. Where they're like throwing haymakers and like body slamming each other, and it's just the most hilarious thing.
The plank of wood in the beer bottle.
Yes. And it just devolves into them like screaming and fighting each other and
put on the glasses.
Put the glasses on. No. Like
SpongeBob.
Keith,
No.
And like Keith David at one point is just like he knees Roddy Piper in the balls like 4 times in a row. Like it just devolves into like pure lunacy, but it's amazing. But eventually he puts on the glasses, and like that scene could have just been a quick exchange.
Hey, put on the glasses. Okay.
Like, fine, I'll put on the glasses, but I'm not gonna see anything. Like,
what?
Like that could have been the scene, and it probably would have been okay. But John Carpenter said, like, I'm working with one of the best like physical performers of our time. We've got to do a fight scene. So of course they had to do this elaborate wrestling scene between Keith David, who like apparently like he was like giving like he never really done anything like big like that before, but like he got into it, like, and Roddy Piper did a lot of the choreography for the scene as well. And there's this funny interview with John Carpenter because they ask him about the fight scene and like, did you ever feel like you were going too far and it was too excessive? He just says, "Fuck no." Like, just complete confidence in what he was doing with that scene. And like it's like people know that movie, even if they don't know They Live, generally they'll know that fight scene, or they'll know like the glasses or something like that, you know.
It's a long fight scene.
It is. And it's constantly entertaining and ramps up. Like, it's a ridiculous fight, but it has really good pacing and is just entertaining from beginning to end. And then the plot starts up again. But it's one of the funniest things, because, like, that scene ends, he puts on the glasses, and he's on board with the mission now, but they've beat the shit out of each other so much that they're just painfully walking to the nearest hotel, and they take a break for the rest of the day. Like, they need to recover. And it's just the funniest thing. Like, the music's playing, like that guitar riff. And it's just funny. It's just really well done. And then, of course, there's the subplot of the homeless man who, at, like, they end up going to, like, the big meeting of, like, the aliens in their, like, fancy space. Like, basically they're in this, like, like, office building type thing, but it's, like, this, like, theater venue, and they're all there talking about, like, economic growth, and everyone's in fancy suits, and, like, some of them are humans, but, like, a lot of them are just aliens. And then the homeless guy shows up at the end, and he's in a fancy suit now because, like, he's been bought out. Like, so just interesting stuff like that.
You can see.
I've got one that can see.
Lady, we all can see.
Lady, this is a Denny's.
That's my line.
I
certified fresh.
Certified fresh. Yep, They Live certified fresh. Yeah, great movie.
What's next on the docket?
Well, this, like, now that we've talked about They Live, now we are transitioning out of the golden age into the rest, as I like to call it.
And the rest.
Pretty much. But there's still some gems worth talking about in this as well, I would say. We're not going to talk a whole lot about Memoir of an Invisible Man, because neither of us have seen Memoirs of an Invisible Man.
But it's basically a comedy take on the Invisible Man.
Starring Chevy Chase.
Yes.
But it is worth mentioning because that film is the first time he worked with Sam Neill.
Oh, was it?
Yep, Sam Neill's in that film, and then of course they would go on to do In the Mouth of Madness. But the one after that, which is one that, like, not many people know about, but it falls into a genre of, like, can you really even call it a genre? Like, it's an anthology film. Like, would you say anthology films are like a genre, or is it just kind of like a format?
I'm not sure, because 90% of anthology films that I've seen have been horror movies.
Yeah. No, and that's fair. Like, that would actually be, like, kind of interesting to see, like, like an anthology action film.
Yeah.
I've never really seen that. Most anthology movies are horror, come to think of it.
Yeah.
I can't think of, like, there's movies that, like, they have, like, multiple vignettes. Like, they all kind of, like, feed into the same story, like, where you get, like, multiple characters and you see how their stories interact. But as far as, like, straight up anthologies, yeah, I think most of them are horror. So that's interesting. Anyway, the movie we're talking about is Body Bags. After that little aside.
It's aight.
Yeah, it's not bad. Like, it's 3 kind of shorter horror movies, 2 of which are done by John Carpenter, and one of them is done by Toby Hooper, which actually stars Mark Hamill. But the first one is super simple. It's just like a lady working at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. You meet a couple of different characters throughout it, and then, like, she's accosted by a serial killer type deal. And she's, like, again, one location, very simple, lady trying to evade a killer. It's a fun little vignette. It's the main character in American Werewolf in London's Jack, right?
The main character?
Yeah. Is
No.
it Jack? Oh, no, his friend
David?
is Jack. David. The guy who plays David in American Werewolf in London is in it, and, like, he shows up and goes away, but then he comes back and, like, helps defeat the killer at the end of the thing. And, like, it's a fun little vignette.
Oh yeah, Sam Raimi's in it randomly.
Yeah, because, like, it was kind of like a excuse for him and his friends to just make a fun thing together. And John Carpenter actually plays, like, the Crypt Keeper type character in the story, where, like, because it's all, like, it's, like, the vignettes are tied together, because, like, he, like, goes to a different body bag and be like, this guy, he had a real rough time, and then it would go into the story. Like, it would have been...
Kessler.
Like, it would have been fun, like, honestly, I would have liked that to be more, like, kind of an anthology Masters of Horror TV show where it's like all these directors get to do like a little like 20 to 30 minute like short, and then that's the
Well, it's very Crypt Keeper-esque. So if you're a fan of Tales from the Crypt and stuff like that, you would like Body Bags.
I would say so, yeah. Like it's worth watching. Like I'm not gonna like we're not gonna talk in depth about all the little like stories, I would say, but like it's a fun little anthology film, and it has its own. There's fun to be had with it, I would say.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Certified fresh?
Certified fresh.
Certified fresh?
Not certified fresh, unfortunately.
Wow.
But a movie that should be certified fresh is In the Mouth of Madness, which I would say for a lot of people is probably the last really great John Carpenter film. Like, at least in my opinion.
I think so, yeah.
Like, because after that, you get into, like, Escape from L.A. and vampires and ghosts of Mars. So, like, I would say In the Mouth of Madness is, like, the last one, like, that I would say stands up with, like, the best stuff that he did in the 80s, for sure.
It's between that and Village of the Damned for me.
Yeah. Which, like, Village of the Damned... I can't remember if I finished Village of the Damned or not. Like...
I feel like you have.
I feel like I have, but, like, it's one of those ones I've only watched, like, once or twice, I think. But In the Mouth of Madness is fantastic. It's a very good, like, Lovecraft-inspired story.
King.
Yeah, like, it's weird, because, like, the writer that's, like, the catalyst for the story, like, Sutter Kane, is a weird, like, mix of Stephen King and H.P. Lovecraft, like, just in the stories that he's written. Because a lot of the titles of, like, the fake books that he's written are references to Lovecraft's work, and they even compare him to Stephen King within the story itself. But,
Well, even Sutter Kane, S.K., Stephen King, S.K.
Yep.
What? Crazy.
Do you read Sutter Kane?
I do not. I can't. He's not real.
True. But it's, it even, like, it is formatted in the same way that, like, a Lovecraft story is formatted, where, like, we start off with the... Well, like, I'd say a lot of, like, some of the, like, 1950s, horror films and, like, that sort of thing formatted this way as well, where, like, we start kind of at the end of the story, and then we flash back to what happened and how the character got there. Because we start with Sam Neill, who is delightful in the film.
And he's in an asylum.
He's in an asylum, he's getting locked up, and then the main doctor, played by David Warner, is, like, talking to him about, like, why he killed a guy and, like, what drove him insane and all that, and then we flash back, and he's, like, is he a private detective, or just... Oh, he's an insurance investigator.
Yes.
Yeah. But, basically, like, he's brought in by this publishing company
To try and find their author.
who has just disappeared in the middle of nowhere. And
Chaos ensues.
basically, yeah, like, he starts reading the guy's books, which, like, they talk about, like, people who read...
Well, it's specifically his final book.
Yeah.
Is the one that really pushes people over the edge.
Well, like, it's not... Because it's not released at the beginning of, the movie. Like, In the Mouth of Madness hasn't come out just yet. But, like, he starts reading his other works, and then, like, he starts seeing, like, this pattern on a lot of the books, and he ends up, like, cutting out the covers of the books and, like, lining them up, and it actually creates a map to a fictional town called Hobbs End, which is one of the, like, locations in the Mouth of Madness. So him and... Like, it's a fake town and all that. But, like, him and, Is it the publisher's assistant?
Yeah.
Who go and they follow the map, which eventually, like, leads them to the fictional town of Hobbs End. And then they find themselves inside of the work of Sutter Kane. And it's a really cool, like, weird, like, meta story, along with being just a really good horror tale, you know? Interesting effects. Like, there's some stuff that, like, feels very, like, late 90s as far as the way the story, like, some of the effects are and all that. But overall, it still feels like that classic Carpenter type story.
No, I agree.
But no, anything else you wanted to add about In the Mouth of Madness?
No, I don't think so. It's one that I've only seen a couple times, but I know it's freaking weird.
Mm-hmm. Not quite as weird as Prince of Darkness, but also not as like normal as The Thing. It kind of falls in the in-between point. It's good stuff. And then the next movie we like, again, I can't talk as much about this one because I've only seen it once or twice myself, but I don't remember a whole lot about it. Is Village of the Damned?
It's a remake.
It is the second remake that he's done.
Yes, and honestly,
If you don't count Assault to Precinct 13, of course.
Honestly, if you were ever looking for an example of Christopher Reeves, who should have been cast as Jack Torrance in The Shining.
Yeah, this is a discussion we've had before, and like honestly, I agree with you to an extent.
Well, because that's who Stephen King wanted to cast Christopher Reeves as Jack in The Shining, because he doesn't come off as crazy right away, but he can reach points of maniac.
Well, if Superman 3 is any indication,
If Superman 1 is any indication, when he loses it, when Lois he flies around the world. But like it's basically he can go from being this loving father to being like, no, I gotta do what I gotta do to save everybody. Or he just loses his mind. Like it's a really great performance. I think it was the last film that he did before his accident too.
If I remember correctly, yes.
And it just kind of like, I don't know, it just shows the range of that man and how great of an actor he actually was.
I would agree with that.
Weak points, Kirstie Alley.
I mean, yeah.
She's in the movie, but...
Hey, Mark Hamill's in it.
Yes.
As a priest?
Yes.
Who gets a sniper rifle? Like, did he have a gun at one point?
Yes, that's how he dies.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And then one of the kids, like...
Yeah, because basically the premise of it is a bunch of... the entire town falls asleep just at the same time. Like, everybody just falls asleep. And when they wake up, a bunch of women are just pregnant from something, they don't know what.
Yeah. And
every baby that's given birth, they all look the same.
Yeah, they all got like white hair and like
pale blue eyes. And it turns out that they're aliens, and they're psychic aliens, and it's just like this really weird, messed up story. But I enjoy it. I think it's really fun. It's kind of campy, but...
Yeah, I think growing up, like, in my brain, I always got Children of the Corn mixed up with Village of the Damned.
Yes, Children of the Corn, very different film.
Yeah, very different film, but, like, for some reason, I always mix those two up in my head as,
There's
like...
similar premises of, like, just kids being a threat.
Yeah.
But very different executions, because one's aliens, the other's, like, he who walks the rose, or whatever it is.
Yeah, he who walks amongst the rose.
Yeah.
Or whatever the hell is... like, it's a weird movie, but fun.
But just, like, literally just for Christopher Reeves acting. Just, that's the main reason to watch it. He's so good. He's so delightful.
Yeah,
He should have been cast as Jack Torrance in The Shining.
Listen, like, I'm inclined to agree with you. Like, Jack Nicholson, though, is iconic as that character.
Yes, but the thing is, when you look at Jack Nicholson at the opening of the film, you're like, oh,
he's crazy.
This guy's already gone.
But like, they also don't bury the lead on that either. Like they're like, oh yeah, he broke Danny's arm once, but he's all right.
He's a good guy.
He's gotten better. Everyone.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's fine.
Yeah. Like that is the one they will say. Like, he's gonna go crazy from the get go, and that is a bit of a weakness. But he is still really good as that character, I would still say. But the Christopher Reeves version of that story, like the Christopher Reeves version of Jack, like if you had gotten that kind of performance out of it,
amazing.
Like, yeah, it would have been more of a drastic change for sure, and that I will agree with you on. And that brings us to the best sequel of all time, Escape from LA.
It's I'm less interested in Escape from LA than Escape from New York.
Yeah, like,
if I had to pick between the two, I'd pick another film.
Wow. Well, I will say, like, Escape from LA is not a great movie, but it's so close to being like a meta film about Hollywood sequels. And I feel like that's what John Carpenter was trying to do with it, but the execution did not bring that across. Because it literally, Hollywood has like been destroyed, but the corpse, like the shambling corpse of Hollywood, is still going strong.
Isn't that the one where like John Carpenter was like, "Hey Kurt, we need you to get the costume."
Yeah,
like,
you're gonna have to like we have to get you fitted again for the costume, and he's like, "Hang on," and he walks out of the room and he comes back wearing the freaking Snake Plissken costume, like he kept it all those years because he's like, "We got to make another one, John." And then they made another one, and then an Escape from LA happens. But
And then
I will
and then,
say, Kurt Russell's still great in it. Like he's still giving 110% as Snake Plissken.
oh no, like and all the cast they got for it were great. It
Like
just
Steve Buscemi as the guide to the stars, Bruce Campbell as the Surgeon General.
it's just such a weird movie.
Oh yeah, like it is 100% weird, and in a lot of ways, like it is like it gets criticized because like it's the same story basically again, except they're saving the president's daughter instead of the president. But also, John Carpenter's like point with making the movie is like making sequels is pointless because why would I want to make the same movie twice? So he just made the same movie twice as a joke. But again, like that doesn't really come across in the movie. It just comes across like, oh, like you didn't try. But that was meant to be the joke. But it doesn't quite work in the same way that something like Last Action Hero works.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the last challenge, like yo, this Escape from New York, like the big challenge, like in the beginning of the third act, is he's got to fight that big guy in the arena. Well, the big challenge in this movie is he's got to dunk a bunch of basketballs before the time runs out.
I mean, hey, if it works,
Why not?
isn't there a wasn't there a lawsuit about Escape from LA?
Oh no, well specifically Escape from New York because there's the movie Lockdown, which is it's basically an escape like it's an Escape from New York ripoff straight up, except the prison's like in space, but like it steals the saving the president's daughter from Escape from L.A. You've got like the like ex soldier on the run whose name like starts with S, like it's Snow instead of Snake, and like he gets captured. And there's a bomb in his neck, so John Carpenter like sued Luc Besson, and John Carpenter won. Because like, and also like he talked for the longest time about doing a third movie called Escape from Earth, which part of it would have taken place in space, and I believe that's what Ghosts of Mars eventually became. Was like a lot of the like plot elements were taken from the concept for Escape from Earth.
That's still what we gotta watch.
It is, yeah. Like, so sorry everyone, we will not be talking about Ghosts of Mars too much on this particular podcast. We'll have to do a follow up when we finally watch Ghost of Mars.
Oh boy.
And then yeah, there's Vampires, which has a wonderful performance from James Woods and some cool vampire kill stuff, but isn't super noteworthy other than that. Like James Woods is having the time of his life. It's not a fantastic film, but like it's entertaining for watching James Woods just being a crazy asshole.
Yeah.
Go figure. Because have you seen Vampires?
Yes.
Yeah, like it's all right. It's not great, but it's all right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a movie.
Yeah, like it's fun because of James Woods playing James Woods, and that's about it.
Yeah.
There you go. Very ending on a bit of a whimper here, but like, yeah, what can you do? And then the last movie that John Carpenter ever directed would be The Ward, which is a movie that I want to like because like it was like at the time it was like, oh my god, there's a new John Carpenter movie, because like this is the point when like I was already a big fan of him by the time this movie was coming out, and I was excited. It's like, oh my god, John Carpenter's got a new movie coming out. This is a dream come true. And then it was The Ward, and it's not a terrible movie by any means, but it's not particularly memorable. Like he didn't do the score for it. It's not shot particularly like a John Carpenter movie either.
It's very generic 2000s horror movie.
Yeah, like there isn't a whole lot to like It doesn't feel like the return of a master of horror like it should have been, you know? Like, and I don't know if that's just like Carpenter not being given the control over it, not being given the budget to do what he wanted to do, or what have you, or if it just got to the point where he didn't really care as much anymore. But there's a little bit of a there's ingredients missing with that film, and it's a bit of a shame because like it is a concept that like it would have been like it's a cool concept that I think would have been really good. There's like one or two sequences in that film that I can remember being pretty solid. Like the intro's pretty good, like with the just like the mystery of like this girl burning down this house and like why she's doing it, things like that. And then there's one of the torture sequences. And then who's the actor? Like the actor who plays the therapist in it.
I have no idea.
Uh Richard Harris. Pretty sure it's Richard Harris. Like from Chernobyl.
Jared Harris?
Jared Harris, thank you. I was like Richard Harris. Like but yeah, but Jared Harris. Jared Harris. I need to look that up. Hold on, everybody. I need to look
It is
this up.
Jared Harris. It is Jared Harris.
It is Jared Harris?
I literally looked it up.
I didn't
have
see
my
you.
phone open.
I didn't see you look
on
it up.
IMDb.
It's
right
fine.
Here. Right here.
The illusion's been broken, everyone. We have our computers with us.
I was looking up things like a responsible person, unlike you, just throwing names out randomly.
Yeah, Richard Harrison is in...
Richard Harrison now? You changing the name again?
Yes, Richard Harrison's in The Ward. Everyone knows that. But no, it's... We end on a bit of a whimper as far as the... Like, John Carpenter's filmography is concerned. But, having said that, like, the man is still staying relevant to one degree or another. Which would bring us into the next category for our discussion. Would be how John Carpenter's films have influenced popular culture as
And
it
the
were.
answer is they haven't.
I would disagree to a certain extent.
The answer is no one likes John Carpenter.
Lots of people like John Carpenter. Actually, it was really funny. I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, like, Guillermo del Toro just did like a 10 or 20 part, like, Twitter thread where he was just gushing about how much he loved John Carpenter's movies. And it was the best thing ever, just seeing Guillermo del Toro fanboy over how much he loves John Carpenter. Not unlike the way I've done today. But clearly, regardless of like the fact that he's not really making movies now, there are contemporaries of his that have continued to make movies now and are still doing a lot of stuff now. And like, even though John Carpenter isn't necessarily making movies now, he still remains relevant in a lot of ways. Like, he's still in popular culture, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, like, he's left an impact on people. Like, there's movies like there's movies like The Guest, which like have a very heavy John Carpenter influence on them. There's so many like the 80s resurgence, like whether it's like movies that are like replicating that like 1980s synth style that he was famous for. Again, filmmakers like Guillermo del Toro who have been influenced by him. Like, he's still very much like, and of course, like the number of films of his that have been remade over the years. The Fog, Halloween, like, no matter how many times people try to like reboot these franchises, like, they never quite capture the same magic, you know?
Well, I think the fact that you can speak to his impact on anything else when it comes to pop culture, but the fact that specifically when they were bringing back Halloween, they used him as a selling feature, and that actually is one of the main reasons why a lot of people came back.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, yeah, no, he approved of the script, he liked it, he's gonna write the music for us. Like, whether or not you can speak to the specifics of like what exactly he contributed to pop culture with.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there's just this undeniable fact that he did, that
Yeah.
he just had this impact.
Well, the main speaking of like video games specifically, like the main character of the Metal Gear Solid franchise, like Snake is based heavily off of like Michael Biehn from Terminator, like Kyle Reese and Snake Pliskin are like the two biggest influences. And even like I think in the second Metal Gear Solid game, he's in disguise and like his character's name is like Pliskin or something like that. So like wearing the influence on the sleeve there.
Mm-hmm. But that's what I mean. Like at the end of the day, like yeah, he's had a cultural impact. Maybe not up front. Maybe not the most.
Not as big as like if you're talking Spielberg or what have you, or and like maybe he's not like around reinventing himself like David Cronenberg is and things like that, but still remains relevant. And like hey, the dude's like got a pretty solid career right now just writing music with his son and his grandson, and he's having a damn good time doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'd love to like the big thing I'd love to see is like not just like the new Halloween movies, which like the scores are fantastic, and like the score was fantastic in the new Halloween, like him doing it. I'd love to see more films like not related to John Carpenter properties, like utilize him as a composer.
Yeah,
I think that would be really cool.
I agree.
And he's said before like he'd love to compose more movie scores, but nobody's asked him, and it's like, dude, John Carpenter wants to do the score for your movie. Just ask him.
Exactly.
Like, I think at one point he was also saying he'd love to make a Dead Space movie, and like, that would be really cool to see, but unfortunately nobody's going to hire him to do it, unfortunately.
Well, with that attitude, of course not.
No, like, I would love it. I'm sure he'd love to do it as well. Like, it would be a perfect fit. But, like, unfortunately nobody's going to do that. But they should.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts before we get into question of the day?
Now, I got nothing.
Okay. Yeah, no. Like,
This has kind of been your show, just because it's been. I'm fine with that, man. I'm actually fine with it. It's been
after I rambled for 2 hours about how much I love John
entertaining to
Carpenter.
listen to you talk about him, and like, again, like I'm a pretty big fan as well. But when it comes down to just knowing about his stuff and knowing about his filmography, you are clearly the superior expert in that category.
It is. I'm a fan, man. Like, I'm not ashamed of like how much I reference like John Carpenter's style and try to like. There's certain things like obviously like in like my stuff that I make, I don't want to just like say, oh, I'm making a movie in the style of John Carpenter, because at the end of the day, like I want to have my own style, but there are things about his movies and like the style that he has that like I do admire, and I do want to emulate some of that, you know?
Well, I mean, I know a lot of decisions for us doing longer, wider takes for Damned Rights was very much John Carpenter inspired.
Mm-hmm.
It was very much like, okay, well, we didn't have a lot of time, so we can't do several setups. All right, let's try and get this in one wide, and we'll see what else we can get after that.
And again, the funny thing about that is like, and he would say it himself, like doing longer takes with wider lenses. Wasn't necessarily a stylistic choice to begin with. It was literally just the most efficient way to get a movie shot, because with Halloween they barely had any time, so a lot of it was just throw it on a wide lens, throw it on a dolly, and let's shoot this whole sequence. But
it works. It's atmospheric and it fits.
Yeah, it gets the job done. Like there's there's a shot in the thing like on the commentary where like it's him and Kurt Russell talking, and like it's literally the scene where like Bennings and McCree are getting out of the helicopter, and like Windows runs out of the thing, and like we dolly with Windows over to the helicopter. He yells, "It's Bennings!" and then they just dolly back, and it's like that's the scene. Like it's one shot, done.
That's all you need, though.
That's all you need. Because we're shooting in -20 and we need to go. Yeah. And you were saying you had a question of the day.
Yes. If you personally had the privilege of remaking a John Carpenter film, which would you pick?
Oh, shit.
You can only choose one.
I can only choose one.
And you get to remake it. You get complete creative control. John Carpenter is an executive producer on it.
Oh my god. Like you're giving me carte blanche on this, basically. Like
Or-
what movie would I want to do? Well, obviously, I'd want to remake The Ward and make it a good movie. No. Dude, that's so tough. Cause like at the end of the day,
I
like,
want to remake all of them.
well, cause like I think I hesitate to pick any of the ones that have been remade. Cause like obviously there's like I can't think of how you would improve something like The Fog, and like the Assault on Precinct 13 remake isn't necessarily a bad movie. It's just kind of it's not especially memorable, you know?
It's generic.
Yeah, is generic. It's not especially bad. It's just a generic siege film at that point. It lacks that style and griminess. Because I feel like I had an answer for this. Like for me, it's probably between. If I had to pick one, it would probably be between Escape from New York or They Live. Like if I really had to think about it.
Do you have any idea how you would try to remake them, or are you just basically like, I have no clue?
Well, like with Escape from New York, I would probably try to like literally again, it's like the main things that Escape from New York could benefit from is a bit of a bigger budget to like really sell the concepts that they're talking about. Um maybe amp up the pacing a little bit, like do a bit more of the world building, like kind of take influence from something like the Warriors as far as the pacing's concerned, where like it's a bit more of a thrill ride for Snake, and you can really feel like the time crunch on the action, you know? Like just really go for it as far as like upping the pace and everything like that. But there isn't a whole lot else there I would do. And as far as They Live is concerned, the most you could do with something like that is take it from a completely different perspective. Like I wouldn't want to remake the same version of that story, but like you would want to basically do a new take on it. Honestly, like I think we discussed this before, like a sequel to They Live, where essentially like this big thing happened, the aliens were revealed, things like that, and yet everything kind of like continued business as usual after a couple days, and everyone forgot about it. Because that the horrifying truth is in reality that's probably what would happen. People are like, oh yeah, well that happened. We killed some of them, and but they're gone. Everyone, things are great, and then basically the same shit just keeps happening, and no one's doing anything about it, even though this big event happened where like aliens were revealed to the world, and that's the cynical view of it. But I feel like that's the biggest thing in tone with the original, where like now we're following like somebody who's maybe in the corporate world who's like wanting to climb the corporate ladder, and like eventually he stumbles upon the same sort of thing. Maybe he finds the glasses in a vault somewhere, who knows. But like basically like it would suddenly be this thing, it's like, oh my god, it's still happening, and then there's characters who are just like, yeah, no shit, it's still happening. Like we haven't really ever left that 1980s capitalistic centric like buy consume type culture. And to me, doing a movie where like it's in the same universe and that stuff happened, but then things carried on as usual, and then we pick up like 30 years later with somebody like rediscovering the same thing and being like, we need to do something about this. Like, yeah, we literally did the one thing we could have done, it did nothing. Like, why even bother? Would feel more like a true follow up to the original. So I guess it's not necessarily like a full remake, but it's like a sequel remake type deal.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me would be the most effective one, I think, and the one that like I don't necessarily think I could do it better, but to me that's the one that I would want to tackle and you could do the most interesting spin on. How about yourself? If you got it, if there was one movie that you could,
we know the answer. We know 100% the
It's
answer.
Prince
I
of
would tackle
Darkness?
Prince of Darkness. Yeah.
Yes.
I'd want him as an executive producer on there. I would want to tackle that, get in his mind about what exactly the mythology is that we're building, and like 2.5 hour movie, 2.5 hour exploring the in-depth intricacies of that, as well as like the horror part of the assault. Like
yeah,
Like, mine's an easy answer. Mine's
Yeah.
always been that, though.
Find a way to like work those more exposition-y type moments more into the story, like,
Even
and
like
really
a
dive into it.
flashback of the beginning of the universe or something like that. Like, oh, real bananas.
Like really kind of go more acid trippy with it in some spots.
That or like a spiritual sequel to In the Mouth of Madness would be fun.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
I'm trying to think of other ones.
Well, because again, it's like it's hard to think of like, because again, like they're doing a new version of the Thing. I know they're saying it's a complete new adaptation, but like at the end of the day, like Frozen Hell is who goes there, but with more, like slightly more in the story.
Has there been any word if that Big Trouble got scrapped or?
Last I heard, like it was still potentially happening, but I haven't heard a whole lot since he initially talked about it.
Well, and I know if it does happen with The Rock, that it is going to specifically have Carpenter involved.
Yeah, like he wants him in as an executive producer, which I think is a baller move on The Rock's part. Because really, like they tried to remake The Fog, and it failed. Village of the Damned itself is a remake. Like I know, like Escape from New York, like has been talked about for years about getting a remake, and nothing ever got off the ground with it. It's similar to like they wanted to like do a new adaptation of The Crow, and just it's never happened. So many people have been like cast as Snake Plissken, and like it just like because the latest new like I'm pretty sure the latest thing is that like Robert Rodriguez is going to be directing and doing it, which like I think is a pretty solid choice overall. And even Carpenter himself has said, "Oh shit, yeah, there's another filmmaker that was like heavily inspired by Carpenter is Robert Rodriguez." Like Planet Terror is just
I guess
like
all those guys like
Yeah.
Rodriguez, Tarantino,
like
Eli Roth.
yeah, because if you look at like From Dusk Till Dawn, like that movie feels like it feels like, especially when you get into the bar, like feels like a John Carpenter type scenario, you know. But no, it's like it's hard to say which ones you would remake because they're where do you elaborate? Like Halloween's been remade already, and like the one thing I think we discussed this before. One of the things that I can say about Rob Zombie's Halloween is like he didn't try to just make the same movie again. Like the story is like pretty close to one once you get past all the like Michael in the asylum stuff.
But he still made it his version of.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I will say about like Rob Zombie's Halloween when you talk about remakes compared to like other remakes where they just kind of try to do the same thing and don't really bring a whole lot of flair to it. Rob Zombie's Halloween feels like his version of Halloween. I don't think it's nearly as good. Like, it's not as good as the original, but it's still, when you compare it to a lot of the sequels, it's still better than most of those.
Well, exactly. And I think to me, it's as good in respect of, again, that it's its own thing.
Yeah. No, and I can agree with that. Like, once I get past, like, Michael's terrible redneck family at the beginning of the movie, like, after he's murdered them all, it's fine. Like, they're just so unpleasant to watch.
Well, so are you.
How dare you?
You'll have to watch Prosser again. Ew. Yeah. Where can the good people find you, Mr. Prosser?
You can find me on Instagram at thatjprosser. You can see what I'm doing there. Like I don't post nearly as much as I'd like to, but there's still updates every now and again. You can find mine and Ethan Hill's film Damned Rights at realhouse.org. You can buy it, you can rent it, send us some money, why not? And then of course on YouTube you can find Jesse Prosser, and I've got a couple short films on there if you want to check those out as well. Where can people find you, Ethan?
Well, you can find me at Ethan R. Hill on Instagram. You can find me on Ethan R. Hill on YouTube. And like Prosper said, you can find our film on realhouse.org. You can also find us here at A Feast of Films. Go back and listen to all of the ramblings without Mr. Prosser.
But also some with.
Yeah, better ones without, though, I think. I don't know.
I think you'll find your viewership is better when I'm on here.
I think I would disagree compared to the last video.
No, it's true. It's about average.
So I'm promote it.
How dare you?
Exactly.
Well, I'll share this one. How does that sound?
Yeah, you'll share this specific one.
This specific one, because it's mostly me.
Well, thank you for coming on and explaining the career of John Carpenter
Yeah.
and discussing it. I think it's something me and you bonded over when we first met in college, and again, I still can't sit there and say compared to you when it comes to his filmography and when it comes to just him as a filmmaker, you are the expert on it.
Yeah, to me, he is one of my inspirations as to why I want to make movies and
use anamorphic lenses.
It's gonna happen one day. But it's just thank you for having me on to talk about John Carpenter and just indulging me as I ramble on and on about how much I enjoy the man's movies.
Oh yeah, and then this movie came out. I loved it. And this movie came out. I loved it.
That's my fear with this, is that it just devolves into me saying, "Oh, it's a good movie," and these are the things I like, and no, it's a good movie. Oh, what do you think about this one? Oh, it's a good movie.
That's one of the trickiest parts about talking about movies like this, is trying to figure out how to do it without just being like thumbs up for this movie. But...
Yep. No, exactly. But I like to think I hopefully I brought a bit of insight into a lot of my favorite ones, and hopefully there are some factoids in there that maybe people didn't know about certain movies of his, and I just hope it was entertaining to listen to and not just the ramblings of a madman.
At the end of the day, man, it's just about us having a good talk about movies and enjoying ourselves. That's it.
And I definitely had a good time.
Good. I slept through most of it.
There's audio. Who's gonna know?
I don't know. I don't know why I'm so tired. I've been doing great. This entire weekend has been wonderful. And then I sat down on the couch and it's just I'm suddenly dying. I must not do anything for the rest of the day. Good night, everybody.
So if you hear snoring in the background, that's why.
It's definitely. Did I snore at all?
No, you didn't snore at all.
Okay,
You're
cool.
you're good.
No, there's a couple times where I definitely dipped out of consciousness there.
It's all good.
Nothing personal. We've had this conversation a billion times.
Wow. I see how it is.
So that's what needs. No, this is.
We'll see if I ever come back to this podcast ever again.
And he never did.
Yeah.
See, that's what I need when I'm having trouble sleeping. I need to. Prosser, come tell me about John Carpenter. Yes, talk your king to sleep. All right.
Jesus Christ. All right.
Well, that's been another episode of Feast of Films. Thanks again, Mr. Prosser, for being on board and being our editor and our John Carpenter expert.
Thank you, Ethan, and thank you for having me on board.
We will see y'all next week. I don't know what the heck that's going to entail, but we'll find out.
Oh, for sure. Is Matt back next week?
I think so.
Sweet deal.
I hope so. I don't know.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, just as long as I get rid of you, I mean.
Bye, everybody.
Either Matt's back or I'm alone, I get. No, we'll figure it out. But other than that, yeah, this has been a Feast of Films. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye-bye.
So long.
Toodaloo.